In a remote campground, Maureen Anu Kelly made a chilling choice. In front of her stunned friends, she began taking off every possession, her jacket, her shirt, her hiking boots, until she was completely bare. Then she turned to her stunned friends and announced that she was leaving on her spiritual quest. They were in shock. A spiritual quest, completely bare, in the middle of a Washington forest as darkness began to fall. She promised to be back by midnight, and then walked barefoot into the wilderness. But midnight came and went. By morning, Maureen Anu Kelly was a missing person, and the desperate search was about to begin. A search not just for her, but for answers. Why didn't she return as promised? What happened to her in those woods? Why she had gone, leaving everything, including her clothes, behind. To understand what led Anu Kelly to take such a drastic and bizarre step, you first have to understand who she was. 19-year-old Maureen Anu Kelly was a deeply spiritual soul who felt a powerful connection to the wild heart of nature, and she grew up in a world that was the complete opposite. Her hometown of Vancouver, Washington, was not a peaceful place. It ranks in the top 10% of America's most dangerous cities, a world of concrete and crime. But Maureen Anu refused to be a product of her environment. She found her escape in the wild heart of nature. For Anu, hiking was more than a hobby, it was her sanctuary, a sanctuary that would prove to be a tragic illusion. When she wasn't on the trails, she could be found playing her ukulele, sharing her music on her own small YouTube channel. These videos now serve as a haunting digital echo of a life completely unaware of the darkness that was about to find her. A carefree spirit set against a grim background. And it was this powerful need to connect with the natural world that would eventually lead her down a path from which there was no return. On June 9th, 2013, that path seemed to begin perfectly. By all accounts, Anu was in high spirits that day, happy and full of life as she and a group of friends set out on the camping trip she had organized. Their destination was Canyon Creek Campground, a remote patch of wilderness deep inside the Gifford Pinchot National Forest. It is a vast, unforgiving wilderness, over 1.3 million acres of dense forest crisscrossed by steep, treacherous slopes. But when Anu and her friends arrived at the campsite, the wilderness felt welcoming. It was an idyllic scene, the kind of perfect day that can lull you into a false sense of security. Then, at around 5 o'clock, that perfect day was shattered. Anu suddenly stood up and announced to her friends that the time had come to begin the spiritual quest she had been planning for so long. Without warning, she caught everyone off guard in an act no one could comprehend. Anu began to shed her clothes piece by piece until nothing remained but her bare skin against the wilderness. She acted as if this was the most natural thing in the world, but for those watching, it was a deeply unsettling sight. Her only supplies were a small fanny pack containing a compass, a knife, and a book of matches. Faced with this bizarre scene, her friends made a choice. They did not interfere. A choice that in hindsight seems almost too understanding. Sheriff David Cox would later explain their reasoning. Anu had been talking about this spiritual quest for a very long time, and they believed it was something she simply needed to do. She had no history of mental health complaints, no diagnosis, so her friends decided to trust her judgment. It was a decision that would haunt them forever. With a promise to return by midnight, Anu turned away from the group. She gave them one final smile, and then she walked off into the woods. Back at the campsite, the hours ticked by. As the temperature dropped into the 40s and a light rain began to fall, concern grew among Anu's friends. She was still out there, completely exposed to the elements. When midnight passed, with no sign of her return, they called the sheriff's office to report her missing. A search party was organized the next morning, and they quickly found a trail of bare footprints leading away from the camp. But this first clue only deepened the mystery. The footprints led down a dangerously steep slope to Canyon Creek. The trail showed that she had crossed the water, then climbed up the equally treacherous slope on the other side. a feat that seemed almost impossible for someone without shoes. The tracks continued all the way to the edge of Forest Road 54, and there the trail simply went cold at the edge of the road. Search dogs lost her scent at the exact same spot. With thick cloud cover making an air search impossible and conditions worsening, the initial search was suspended for the night. By the time they resumed, Anu had been in the unforgiving wilderness for multiple days. And then, authorities made a baffling decision. After just 2 days of searching, the official operation to find Anu Kelly was called off. In a missing person case, this was an unusually short time. Refusing to accept this, Anu's family went to the media. The public pressure worked, and the operation was resumed later that week. But crucial time had been lost. With each passing hour, the chances of finding Anu alive and well were rapidly diminishing. The renewed search, however, was strangely short-lived. On June 15th, just 6 days after she had walked into the woods, the operation was permanently called off. The reasons for this final decision were never fully explained. With every physical trace of Anu gone, all that remained were questions and theories. We will explore them all, but we'll save the most bizarre and perhaps the most likely for last. One possibility is that she had an accident in the forest, given the challenging conditions. But this theory ignores one giant, glaring question. Why was nothing ever found? One explanation is that the forest wildlife simply erased the trail, but even scavengers leave something behind. At the very least, her fanny pack with its metal knife and compass. Yet in Anu's case, there was nothing, not a single trace. Which leads to a far more disturbing possibility. Was the predator that found Anu a creature of the forest, or the kind that walks on two legs? And that brings us to the next, much debated theory. This theory is based on the fact that Anu definitely made it to Forest Road 54. Anu's trail of footprints led searchers directly to the well-maintained strip of asphalt. And there, they predictably vanished. One possibility is that she never actually crossed it. Her footprints weren't found on the other side, so perhaps she turned and walked along the road for a while before heading back into a different part of the woods. If she walked far enough on the hard asphalt, she would have left a gap in her trail, too large for searchers to bridge. But there is a second, far more chilling possibility that she was picked up by someone. After all, the area Anu came from was known for crime. She was trying to escape that world, and now she was completely alone and exposed on the side of a remote road. The strongest evidence for this actually comes from the search dogs. They were able to track her scent all the way to the edge of Forest Road, and then suddenly it just vanished. A barefoot person leaves a powerful trail, so for that scent to stop so cleanly, it strongly suggests she never took another step on the ground. And this entire theory would seem perfectly plausible if not for one bizarre fact that would only become widely known years later, and we will get to that fact very soon. Meanwhile, this abduction theory has one more huge problem: the official police stance. Despite what the search dogs indicated, investigators have repeatedly stated that they do not suspect foul play in her disappearance. So we're left with a stark contradiction: the nose of a search dog versus the official word of the investigators. Who is right? And if there was no foul play, where did the girl with no footprints go? But not everyone is convinced that Anu's story ended in tragedy. Online communities have since found a piece of evidence so bizarre, it casts the entire case in a new light. In the frantic first days of the search, Anu's family created a Find Anu Facebook page. And just 3 days after she vanished, amidst the prayers and panic, one comment stood out. A comment from the one person who should have been the most desperate, her own brother. In response to this outpouring of grief and support, his comment read, "Thanks guys, but I know things." That single casual sentence, ending with a winking emoji, changed everything for those following the case. What could he possibly know? And why the casual, almost playful tone while his sister was supposedly fighting for her life in the wilderness? For many, This was the key, the proof that Anu had made contact, that the family knew she was safe. And this theory was seemingly cemented when shortly after that comment, the family suddenly deleted the Find Anu page without explanation. Why would you stop the search? Unless you already knew the search was over. It's a theory that offers hope, but it also paints a picture of a bizarre, elaborate deception, a girl who put her friends and an entire community through hell just to disappear. And so, after all the theories and the cryptic online clues, the case of Anu Kelly splits into two equally unsettling possibilities. The first possibility is that a free-spirited girl seeking communion with nature met a tragic end. The second possibility is of a carefully planned disappearance, a staged spiritual quest designed to let her vanish into a new life. Which reality is the truth? The family's public silence in the years since and that one cryptic message from her brother seemed to lean towards the second option. But with no new life ever discovered and she ever found, the case of Anu Kelly remains officially unsolved. This leaves us with one final, haunting question. Are we searching for a young woman who was lost or for a person who simply never wanted to be found?